Are you concerned about the things that are going on with Russia and the Ukraine and how they might affect us here in the U.S. and in some of the places where some of you guys are at? I think we should be concerned somewhat. I don't think it's going to escalate to World War III. I've been considering what's going on and how it might have an effect on us. So I have 5 areas of concern that I want to talk to you guys about and give you some of the ideas that I have and some of the things that we're doing here. Area number 1 has to do with potential cyber attacks on our banking system and our financial systems. So what can we do? In my thinking, number 1, withdraw some cash from our bank accounts before there is any such thing going on. Keep it on hand, because the time might come when the banking system suffers some kind of a cyber attack. It might only be locally here or wherever, but if it's where you are, you might be facing a few days of a cash only system. The second area of concern has to do with gas or fuel. We already know that the price of oil is going up. Price of gas where I am is going up, probably where you are too. So before it gets way out of proportion to what it should be, a few things that we could do, easy to do at the time. Number 1, keep your gas tanks full. When you hit that 3/4 level rather than the half full level, fill it up. That's what we're going to try to do here. Number 2, you can get gas jugs, 5-gallon gas jugs. Get you 2, 3, 5, 10, 15 gallons of gasoline in storage. In the event that you have an emergency, I don't want you guys to find yourself in the middle of an emergency, no gas or very little gas, go to the gas station, and you got to wait for an hour or 2 hours to get to the pump. Just keep a little bit on hand in storage. If nothing comes of all this stuff that's going on, then you can simply put that gasoline into your vehicle. And as a side note, some of the newer vehicles, you can't transfer the gas from the gas jug directly into your gas tank anymore. You have to have some kind of a little plastic device, which I happen to have one for my vehicle, but make sure you got that so you don't make a mess when you're pouring the gas out of the jug into the vehicle. Area number 3, inflation. It's been happening, still happening, and we're looking at the potential for the inflation to inflate. Of course, that's going to mean, among other things, higher food prices. I would suggest that you and us here, that we all go out while we can, get an extra week supply of storage foods, maybe a couple weeks, or whatever you can manage to do, whatever you can afford to do. Area number 4 of concern. Again, has to do with cyber attacks, but this time, power outages. I'm not talking EMP type of things where everything goes out for an extended period of time, something more like the rolling blackouts that we've seen from time to time in various places. How long will those power outages be? If they occur, might be a few hours, might be a few days. But I think we need to realize that there is a possibility that such could happen. Power might be out for me, not for you, maybe for you, not for me, and so on. So things to think about. We are in the middle of winter, so heating. If you live in an area that gets cold, we do, you need to consider a secondary source of heat if your primary source is electric. Fortunately for us here, we have the blessing of a wood-burning stove. You've seen it in some of the videos. That's our primary source of heat, and it won't be affected if the power goes out. But we do have a secondary and a third source of heat in the event that we need it. So think along lines of staying warm. Along those lines, number 1, try to make sure that you have the ability or capability of sealing off a room in the event the power goes out and you need to turn to your secondary source of heat. Sealing off the room, I'm talking about things like quilts, blankets, maybe duct tape, put them up on the wall or over a doorway. 2 would be your secondary source of heat. I don't have an extensive list of all the different types of heat sources that you might use for that, but one in particular that comes to mind that we have is the little buddy heater. Uses the little 1 gallon or 1 pound propane canisters. It does very well. We use that on camping trips sometimes inside a tent. It is safe to use indoors. For those of you that have a primary heating source that is not grid dependent, check, make sure you got enough fuel, whatever that might be, propane, kerosene, wood, coal, whatever. Make sure you got enough to get you through the winter. In the event, electric is your secondary choice of heat. Another area to think about as part of the power outages is lighting. Think of candles, flashlights, small lanterns or large lanterns, lanterns that use some type of oil. But the simplest thing, if you just for short-term power outages, the most simple thing is to have a small lantern or two, battery powered, and or flashlights, which you can put in a cup, something like this. I don't have one with me right now, but you can put a flashlight in here, turn it on, let it set up, shine on the ceiling, and it will light up your whole room somewhat better than no light at all. So think candles, flashlights, lanterns, and the batteries, AA or AAA or whatever it is, power them. Along the lines of the power going out, a couple of other concerns. If you have a freezer, you can keep your freezer closed, and that food, under most circumstances, will stay good and frozen for a couple or 3 days. But the food in your fridge, what are you going to do with that? I have an idea for you if you're interested. This is something that we have considered here and plans that we've made. We have a bag of ice that we keep in our freezer, and we have a deep freeze. Some of you may not have that. But if you have one, consider getting a bag of ice. Then, when and if the power goes out, you can put the bag of ice in a cooler, like you would take picnicking or camping or something like that. Put the bag of ice in that. Take the food out of your fridge that is the most important to you, that you don't want to lose. Put it in the cooler, and perhaps you can keep it then for a couple of 3 days. Give you a chance to eat it then. Maybe you won't have to throw it out. Then when the power comes back on, you can restock your refrigerator. You can go to the store because you got gas on hand, and you got the cash in case that the credit card system doesn't work, right? You got it all covered. You can offset a lot of these power outage problems in your prepper pantry shopping. Like in this video, get yourself some one-pot meals in a can as a survival food. And the last thing along the lines of power outages would be not just getting a little bit more food, but cooking that food. If you depend upon the power grid to cook your food, as most of us do, then consider getting a secondary source again, or a secondary way of heating and or cooking your food. In this video, I show you 5 different stoves and methods of heating and or cooking your food in a grid down situation or any type of power outage. I highly suggest you watch that video and consider getting 1 or maybe 2 of those stoves. They're not all that expensive, readily available, easy to use, and safe to use indoors. When you have to use one of those stoves to cook, you will also have your lantern that will let you see, right? Okay. Now, if you get one of those stoves, don't forget the fuel. The last area that I want to talk to you guys about politics. All you guys know that our country is very divided along political lines, amongst other things. Right now, there's a lot of he's responsible, she's responsible, they're responsible, and you get the picture, you know what's going on. I would say to you about all this, whatever your political opinion is, your political agenda is, or whatever it is you think about it, your family is going to need you a lot more than the world needs to know what your political opinions are. So you get caught up in all the high emotions and arguing and bickering and carrying on. Don't get caught up in all that stuff. Because again, remember, your family is going to need you more than the world needs to know who your favorite politician is or who you want to blame for this and that. There you go, 5 items of concern in regard to the Russian and the Ukraine situation. If nothing happens that affects us directly, I don't think it will, but indirectly, these things we talked about, they are realistic concerns, I think. And these things that I've talked about here in this video, if we do these things and nothing happens, you've just added some more materials, stuff, maybe even skills to your preps. And you're that much better off for having done so.